2026 is not the year to explain yourself. It's the year to elevate yourself. Too many people lose power because they talk too much, seek validation too often, and announce plans before they're built. Silence is not weakness. Focus is not selfishness. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you stop leaking energy and start compounding results. This year, your life doesn't change because you say more, it changes because you do more. Silence protects your vision because every meaningful goal begins fragile. In its early stages, a vision is more belief than reality, more faith than evidence. When you speak it too soon, you expose it to forces that can weaken it, doubt, criticism, misunderstanding, and even well-meaning advice that is not aligned with your path. Silence acts like a shield. It allows your idea to mature without interference, giving you the space to think clearly, act decisively, and stay emotionally committed when results are not yet visible. Most people underestimate how much words drain energy. Every time you explain your plans, you subconsciously feel a sense of completion, even though no real progress has been made. Talking creates the illusion of movement. Silence, on the other hand, creates actual movement. When you keep your vision to yourself, the only way to release the pressure inside you is through action. You work because there is no applause yet. You build because there is no validation yet. This turns discipline into your default behavior. Silence also protects you from unnecessary opinions. Not all opinions are equal, but when you speak openly, you invite all of them, especially from people who have never built what you are trying to build. Their doubts are often projections of their own limitations. They may not intend harm, but their words can plant hesitation in your mind. Once doubt enters, momentum slows. Silence prevents that contamination. It keeps your mental environment clean and focused. Another powerful reason silence protects your vision is that it preserves emotional stability. When you announce your goals publicly, you tie your emotions to external reactions. Praise can inflate your ego and criticism can deflate your confidence. Both are dangerous. Silence keeps your emotions grounded in purpose rather than performance. You stay steady whether things are going well or poorly, because your motivation comes from within, not from feedback. Silence also sharpens clarity. When you are not constantly explaining yourself, you spend more time listening to your intuition, to patterns, to results. You notice what works and what doesn't. You refine your approach without defending it. This creates strategic thinking instead of reactive thinking. Many people fail not because they lack ambition, but because they are too busy talking to think deeply. There is also a spiritual and psychological strength in being quiet about your plans. Silence communicates confidence without saying a word. It signals that you trust the process enough to let results speak later. People who talk excessively often seek reassurance. People who stay silent are usually building certainty. That certainty compounds over time into unshakable self-belief. Silence does not mean secrecy out of fear. It means selectivity out of wisdom. You may share your vision with a mentor, a partner, or someone who has proven alignment, but you don't broadcast it to everyone. You understand that access is earned, not given freely. This mindset alone elevates the way you move through life. In a world addicted to announcing, posting, and proving, silence becomes a competitive advantage. While others are distracted by reactions, you are focused on execution. While others are explaining delays, you are eliminating them. While others are talking about what they will do, you are quietly becoming someone new. A short example makes this clear. Imagine two people who both decide to start a business in 26. The first person tells friends, posts on social media, and talks constantly about future success. They receive praise at first, then questions, then doubts. Slowly, the excitement fades, and so does the effort. The second person tells almost no one. They wake up early, learn, fail privately, adjust, and keep going. Months later, when the business starts producing results, people are surprised. The difference wasn't talent or opportunity. It was silence protecting the vision until it was strong enough to stand on its own. In the end, silence is not about hiding, it's about nurturing. It's about giving your vision the respect it deserves by protecting it from noise until it becomes undeniable. When the time is right, you won't need to explain anything. Your results will introduce you. Focus is the currency of high achievers because attention is the most valuable resource a human being possesses. Money can be earned again, time can sometimes be managed better, but attention once wasted is gone forever. Whatever consistently receives your attention will shape your skills, habits, identity, and ultimately your results. High achievers understand this deeply. They don't just work hard, they work with intention. They decide in advance what deserves their focus, and just as importantly, what is not. Most people live in a reactive state. Their focus is constantly hijacked by notifications, opinions, trends, comparisons, and emotional triggers. As a result, their energy is fragmented. Fragmented focus produces fragmented results. You can't build something meaningful when your mind is always somewhere else. High achievers protect their focus the way investors protect capital. They know that misplacing attention is like burning money without realizing it. Focus creates momentum. When you direct your attention toward one skill, One goal or one priority over a sustained period progress compounds. Small actions repeated daily with focus produce massive outcomes over time. This is why someone with average talent but intense focus often outperforms someone with superior talent but scattered attention. Focus turns effort into leverage. Another reason focus functions as currency is because it determines the quality of your thinking. Deep focus leads to deep thinking. Shallow focus leads to shallow decisions. High achievers carve out uninterrupted time to think, plan, analyze, and reflect. This allows them to see patterns others miss and make decisions that appear lucky from the outside. In reality, that luck is the byproduct of focused thought. Focus also eliminates unnecessary stress. When your attention is divided among too many goals, you constantly feel behind. High achievers simplify. They choose fewer priorities and execute them with excellence. This creates clarity, and clarity creates calm. Calm minds make better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Focus is also the antidote to comparison. The moment you focus on your own path, other people's progress loses its power over you. Comparison only exists when focus is misdirected. High achievers understand that envy is a sign of misplaced attention. Instead of watching what others are doing, they invest that attention into improving their own systems. Discipline becomes easier when focus is clear. When you know exactly what matters, saying no becomes natural. You don't need motivation to stay focused. Focus itself generates motivation. Progress fuels momentum, and momentum fuels confidence. This is why high achievers appear consistent. They are not fighting distractions every day. They've already decided what deserves their attention. Focus also accelerates learning. When attention is concentrated, feedback loops shorten. You make mistakes faster, correct them faster, and improve faster. Scattered focus delays mastery. Focused attention speeds it up. This applies to bishops and personal growth. Wherever focus goes, improvement follows. In a noisy world, focus becomes rare, and rarity increases value. This is why focus is currency. Those who can control their attention control their outcomes. Those who cannot are controlled by circumstances, trends, and other people's agendas. High achievers don't let their environment dictate their focus. They design their environment to protect it. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine two individuals who both want to improve their financial situation. The first person consumes endless content, jumps between side hustles, checks social media constantly, and talks about many ideas but commits to none. The second person chooses one skill, blocks distractions, studies daily, practices consistently, and measures progress weekly. After a year, the difference is dramatic. One feels busy but stuck. The other has tangible results. The difference wasn't intelligence or opportunity. It was focus used like currency instead of spent like loose change. In the end, high achievement is less about doing more and more about focusing better. When you treat your attention as valuable, you stop wasting it. And when you stop wasting focus, you start building a life that reflects intention, not distraction. Results speak louder than announcements because reality never needs marketing. Anyone can talk about what they are going to do, but only a few are willing to endure the process required to actually do it. Announcements create noise, results create authority. The world is saturated with promises, plans, and intentions, which is why people have become numb to words. What still commands attention is evidence. When something is real, it doesn't ask to be believed. It is seen, felt, and recognized without explanation. Announcements often satisfy the ego before the work is done. When you tell people what you plan to achieve, the brain experiences a small hit of reward similar to accomplishment. This can quietly reduce the urgency to act. You feel productive without producing anything. Results, on the other hand, provide satisfaction only after effort, discipline, and consistency. They demand action before reward, which is why they carry weight. Another reason results are more powerful than announcements is trust. Trust is built on consistency, not intention. People don't trust what you say you will do. They trust what you repeatedly demonstrate. Over time, results create a reputation. Announcements create expectations. Expectations, when unmet, lead to doubt and disappointment. This is why those who talk the most often have the least credibility. They raise anticipation but fail to deliver proof. Results also remove the need for explanation. When your life shows improvement, people don't ask for justification. Financial growth, personal discipline, emotional stability, and skill mastery speak in a universal language. You don't need to convince anyone that you are serious when your actions confirm it daily. Results silence critics more effectively than arguments ever could. There is also a psychological advantage to letting results speak. When you stop announcing your plans, you free yourself from external pressure. You no longer feel rushed to perform for an audience or ashamed if progress is slow. This creates room for honest growth. You can fail privately, adjust quietly, and improve steadily. Public announcements often force premature confidence. Private effort builds real confidence. Results compound. While announcements fade, words are forgotten quickly, but outcomes leave lasting impressions. A single result can outweigh years of talk. This is why one visible success often opens more doors than dozens of explanations. People are drawn to proof because it reduces uncertainty. Results show that something works, not just that it sounds good. Another key aspect is respect. Respect is rarely given to those who speak loudly about their intentions. It is earned by those who consistently deliver. When people see results, they begin to listen without being asked. Influence shifts naturally toward the producer, not the promoter. This influence is quiet but powerful. Results also protect you from comparison and competition. When you are focused on producing outcomes, you are too busy to measure yourself against others. Announcements often invite comparison and criticism, while results shift attention to substance. You are no longer part of the conversation, you become the reference point. In many cases, announcements even attract resistance. Not everyone wants to see you succeed, and broadcasting your plans can invite negativity, doubt, or discouragement. Results bypass all of that. They arrive complete, they don't debate, they don't argue, they simply exist. A short example makes this clear. Imagine two people who decide they want to get physically fit. The first person announces it repeatedly, posts about future workouts, and talks about the body they plan to build. Weeks pass, but consistency fades. The second person tells almost no one. They train daily, adjust their diet, and stay disciplined without posting or explaining. After several months, the difference is obvious. One still talks, the other is transformed. No announcement was needed. The results spoke for themselves. In the end, announcements seek attention, but results command it. When you shift your focus from being heard to being effective, everything changes. Let your work speak. Let your progress be your introduction. And when results arrive, they will say far more than words ever could. Stop seeking validation and start seeking growth, because validation is temporary, external, and addictive, while growth is permanent, internal, and transformative. Validation feels good in the moment. It's the praise, the likes, the approval, the reassurance that you are doing well. But the danger of validation is that it places your self-worth in the hands of other people. The moment you need applause to keep moving, you surrender control over your progress. Growth, on the other hand, asks a different question, not do they approve, but am I improving? That question builds power instead of dependency. When you seek validation, your decisions subtly change. You begin choosing actions that are visible instead of valuable. You prioritize what looks impressive over what actually builds skill, character, and results. Growth often happens quietly, slowly, and without recognition. Validation wants speed and attention. That's why so many people abandon the path of growth. It doesn't reward the ego immediately. But anything that truly changes your life requires patience without praise. Validation also weakens resilience. If encouragement's you, criticism will destroy you. When your motivation depends on how others respond, every negative comment feels personal, and every lack of recognition feels like failure. Growth-oriented people don't collapse under silence or criticism because their reference point is internal. They measure progress against who they were yesterday, not against someone else's opinion today. Another problem with validation is that it locks you in a comparison. You start watching how others react to your progress instead of focusing on the process itself. Comparison drains energy and creates anxiety. Growth redirects that energy inward. It replaces comparison with curiosity. What can I learn? What can I refine? What can I do better tomorrow? This mindset keeps you moving forward even when no one is watching. Seeking growth also builds real confidence. Validation-based confidence is fragile. It rises and falls with feedback. Growth-based confidence is earned. It comes from discipline kept, skills sharpened, and promises kept to yourself. When you know you are putting in the work, you don't need constant reassurance. Your confidence becomes quiet, stable, and unshakable. Validation avoids it. To grow, you must be willing to look foolish while learning, to struggle without sympathy, and to persist without applause. Validation often tempts people to quit too early because beginners rarely receive recognition. Growth teaches you to stay committed through that phase. It shifts your focus from being admired to being capable. There is also freedom in letting go of validation. You stop performing for others and start building for yourself. You make decisions based on long-term benefit instead of short-term approval. This freedom accelerates progress because your energy is no longer divided between doing the work and wondering how it looks to others. Growth compounds in silence. Small improvements repeated daily eventually create visible transformation. Validation interrupts this compounding by constantly pulling your attention outward. Growth pulls your attention inward, where real change begins. Over time, the person who focused on growth surpasses the person who focused on being seen, even if the second person had more attention early on. A short example makes this clear. Imagine two individuals learning a new skill. The first constantly posts about their journey, seeking encouragement and praise. When engagement drops, motivation fades, and practice becomes inconsistent. The second tells almost no one. They practice daily, struggle privately, and track improvement honestly. Months later, one still talks about learning while the other demonstrates mastery. The difference wasn't talent, it was the choice between validation and growth. In the end, validation asks, growth asks, who am I becoming? One makes you dependent, the other makes you dangerous in the best way. When you stop seeking validation and commit to growth, you stop living for approval and start living with purpose. And eventually, the results you build through growth will attract respect naturally without you ever asking for it. Not everyone needs to understand you because understanding is not a prerequisite for success, growth, or fulfillment. Many people waste years trying to explain their choices, justify their discipline, or convince others of their vision. This constant need to be understood drains energy and creates hesitation. The truth is simple. People can only understand you to the level of their own awareness, experience, and courage. Expecting universal understanding is unrealistic and unnecessary. When you seek understanding from everyone, you unconsciously dilute your path. You begin adjusting your decisions to make them easier to explain rather than more effective to execute. You soften your ambition, slow your pace, and sometimes abandon your standards just to avoid discomfort or criticism. This is one of the quiet ways dreams die, not through failure, but through excessive explanation. Most people don't resist your growth because it's wrong. They resist it because it reminds them of what they are not doing. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your focus exposes their distractions. Your silence challenges their noise. So when they question you, doubt you, or misunderstand you, it is often more about their internal conflict than your external choices. Understanding this frees you from taking their reactions personally. There is also a timing gap that many people ignore. You are living with the future version of yourself in mind, while others only see the present version of you. They judge your actions based on who you were, not who you are becoming. Explaining your future to someone anchored in your past rarely works. Results eventually bridge that gap. Explanations rarely do. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next level. Some people are seasonal. They were aligned with your old habits, your old thinking, your old pace. Growth creates distance, and distance creates misunderstanding. That doesn't make you arrogant or disloyal. It makes you honest about your evolution. Trying to drag everyone along only slows you down. There is strength in being misunderstood while remaining committed. It builds inner authority. When you no longer need approval or comprehension, you start trusting your judgment more deeply. You become less reactive, less defensive, and more grounded. Silence replaces argument. Action replaces explanation. Peace replaces anxiety. Another important truth is that understanding often comes after results, not before. Many people will doubt you while you are building and celebrate you once you arrive. If you wait for understanding before acting, you will never start. High-level progress requires acting without consensus. Every meaningful change in history began with someone willing to be misunderstood for a season. Letting go of the need to be understood also sharpens focus. Instead of rehearsing explanations in your mind, you invest that mental energy into execution. You stop asking, how will this look? And start asking, will this work? That shift alone can dramatically accelerate growth. It's also important to recognize that some people don't want to understand you. Understanding would require them to question their own comfort, habits, or beliefs. Misunderstanding becomes a defense mechanism. When you realize this, you stop trying to convince and start conserving your energy. A short example makes this clear. Imagine someone who decides to radically change their life, waking up earlier, declining social outings, studying consistently, and working quietly toward a long-term goal. Friends begin to say they're doing too much or taking life too seriously. The person could spend hours explaining their vision, or they could stay disciplined and silent. Months later, the results appear: new opportunities, confidence, progress. Suddenly, the same people who didn't understand now say, I see why you did it. Understanding didn't come from explanation, it came from evidence. In the end, being understood is optional. Becoming who you are meant to be is not. You don't owe clarity to everyone, you owe commitment to yourself. Let misunderstanding be the price you pay for growth. Stay aligned with your values, disciplined in your actions, and patient with the process. Those who are meant to understand will eventually recognize it without being told. And those who don't were never required for your journey in the first place. Discipline thrives in quiet environments because consistency requires clarity, and clarity is almost impossible to maintain in constant noise. Noise is not just sound, it is distraction, opinions, notifications, emotional reactions, unnecessary conversations, and mental clutter. Discipline is the ability to do what must be done even when you don't feel like it, and that ability weakens when your attention is constantly pulled in different directions. Quiet creates the conditions where discipline can grow roots instead of being uprooted every day. In noisy environments, discipline is forced to compete. Every distraction asks for your attention, every opinion demands a response, and every comparison triggers emotion. This creates decision fatigue. When your mind is exhausted from reacting, Discipline collapses. Quiet removes competition. It simplifies your mental space so the right actions become obvious and repeatable. When fewer things demand your attention, it becomes easier to commit to what truly matters. Quiet environments also reduce emotion interference. Discipline is not an emotion act, it is a principled one. Noise amplifies emotion, excitement, frustration, fear, and doubt. When emotions run high, consistency runs low. Quiet calms the nervous system, allowing logic, intention, and long-term thinking to lead. This is why people often make their best decisions alone, away from crowds and commentary. Another reason discipline thrives in quiet is because habits are built in repetition, not performance. Noise encourages performance. It makes you conscious of how things look instead of how they work. Quiet encourages process. When no one is watching, you are free to focus on form, improvement, and consistency. You stop rushing for validation and start refining for mastery. Quiet also strengthens self-trust. When you are constantly surrounded by voices, you second-guess yourself. You begin outsourcing your judgment. In quiet, you hear your own thoughts clearly. You notice patterns in your behavior. You recognize what works and what doesn't. This self-awareness is essential for discipline because you can't correct what you don't observe. Discipline requires delayed gratification, and quiet environments make waiting easier. Noise constantly stimulates the brain, demanding instant responses and immediate rewards. Quiet slows time and makes patience tolerable. It allows you to sit with discomfort without escaping into distraction. This ability to stay present during discomfort is at the core of discipline. Quiet environments also protect routines. Routines are fragile in chaotic settings. Every interruption increases the chance of inconsistency. Quiet allows routines to run uninterrupted, turning actions into habits and habits into identity. Over time, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like who you are. It's important to understand that quiet does not mean isolation from the world. It means intentional reduction of unnecessary input. You can be productive, connected, and effective without being constantly available. Discipline thrives, the boundaries exist. Quiet is often the result of boundaries, deciding when to speak, when to consume, and when to disengage. Noise makes discipline reactive. Quiet makes discipline proactive. In noise, you respond to what happens. In quiet, you act according to plan. This shift from reaction to intention is what separates those who struggle with consistency from those who embody it. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine two people trying to build a daily reading habit. The first keeps notifications on, engages in constant group chats, and reads whenever time appears. The second sets aside a quiet hour each morning, phone off, no conversations, no interruptions. After a few weeks, the first person struggles to stay consistent, while the second reads daily without resistance. The difference wasn't motivation or intelligence, it was the quiet environment that allowed discipline to take root. In the end, discipline does not grow in chaos. It grows where there is order, intention, and space to think. Quiet environments remove friction, reduce temptation, and sharpen focus. When you intentionally create quiet in your life, discipline stops being something you chase and starts being something you live. Energy is limited, spend it wisely, because every day you wake up with a finite amount of mental, emotional, and physical capacity, and once it's spent, it cannot be recovered until rest replenishes it. Unlike time, which moves forward regardless of how you feel, energy determines how effectively you use that time. Two people can have the same 24 hours, but the one who manages energy better will always produce more meaningful results. Wasting energy is one of the most invisible reasons people feel stuck, overwhelmed, and unproductive. Most people leak energy without realizing it. Arguments, overthinking, unnecessary explanations, gossip, comparison, resentment, and constant reaction to external events quietly drain the same energy that could have been used to build skills, create opportunities, or improve health. Emotional reactions are especially expensive. Getting upset over things you cannot control doesn't just cost peace of mind, it robs you of focus and momentum. High-level progress requires emotional discipline as much as physical effort. Mental energy is one of the most precious forms of energy. Every decision you make, every problem you solve, and every choice you evaluate consumes it. When your mental energy is scattered across trivial matters, endless scrolling, debates that change nothing, worrying about other people's opinions, you have less capacity left for meaningful work. This is why simplifying life is not laziness, it's strategy. Fewer unnecessary decisions preserve energy for the decisions that actually matter. Emotional energy is equally valuable. Carrying anger, jealousy, guilt, or the need to prove yourself creates an internal tax. You may still function, but at a reduced capacity. When emotional energy is drained, discipline weakens and focus slips. Spending emotional energy wisely means choosing peace over ego, silence over argument, and progress over being right. It means accepting that not every situation deserves your reaction. Physical energy is often mismanaged as well. Late nights, poor nutrition, lack of movement, and constant stimulation exhaust the body, which directly affects the mind. You cannot separate physical energy from mental performance. When the body is depleted, willpower drops, patience thins, and consistency suffers. Spending physical energy wisely means respecting rest, routine, and recovery as much as effort. One of the biggest energy drains is trying to manage other people's perceptions. Explaining yourself, defending your choices, and seeking approval burns enormous energy while producing no tangible return. When you let go of the need to be understood, you reclaim that energy for execution. Silence is not passive, it is conservation. Conserved energy compounds in a sustained effort. Energy spent on things outside your control produces anxiety. Energy spent on things within your control produces progress. This distinction is critical. You cannot control how people think, what they say, or how quickly results appear. You can control how consistently you show up, how well you prepare, and how you respond. Wise energy management means redirecting effort away from outcomes you can't force and toward processes you can control. Another reason energy must be spent wisely is that fatigue changes behavior. When energy runs low, people make poor decisions, break habits, and abandon long-term goals for short-term comfort. Many failures are not caused by lack of ambition, but by chronic energy depletion. Protecting energy protects consistency, and consistency is what ultimately creates results. Spending energy wisely also means knowing when not to engage. Not every message needs a reply. Not every challenge needs a response. Not every opportunity deserves a yes. Strategic restraint preserves strength. High performers are not those who do everything, but those who choose carefully where to invest themselves. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine two people working toward the same goal. The first argues online, reacts emotionally to criticism, explains their plans repeatedly, stays up late scrolling, and worries about what others think. By the end of the day, they feel exhausted and unfocused. The second limits conversations, avoids unnecessary conflict, follows a routine, and channels energy into learning and execution. Both were busy, but only one was effective. The difference wasn't talent or time, it was energy allocation. In the end, your life reflects where your energy goes. If you spend it reacting, you will feel drained and stagnant. If you spend it building, you will feel tired but fulfilled. Energy is a form of currency. Spend it on growth, discipline, learning, and execution. Guard it from distractions, negativity, and ego-driven behavior. When you learn to manage energy wisely, progress becomes sustainable and success stops feeling like a struggle. Work in private and win in public because real transformation is built away from attention. Progress that lasts is rarely loud in the beginning. It's quiet, repetitive, sometimes boring, and often invisible. Private work is where skills are sharpened, habits are formed, and weaknesses are confronted without the pressure to perform. Public wins are simply the delayed evidence of what was done consistently when no one was watching. When you work in private, you remove the need to impress. There's no audience to please, no image to maintain, and no pressure to look successful before you actually are. This freedom allows honesty. You can admit what you don't know, make mistakes without embarrassment, and take the time required to truly improve. Public environment appearance, private environments reward progress. Growth needs progress, not performance. Private work also protects focus. Attention is a powerful force, and when it's divided between doing the work and being seen doing the work, the quality of effort drops. Many people sabotage their potential by documenting every step instead of deepening their skill. When you work privately, all your attention goes into execution. You're not distracted by reactions, feedback, or comparison. That concentrated effort compounds faster. Another reason private work matters is resilience. When you build in silence, setbacks don't become public failures. You don't feel the urge to quit just to save face. You're free to fail, adjust, and try again as many times as necessary. This builds emotional strength. You learn to rely on discipline instead of motivation and consistency instead of excitement. By the time results appear, you've already developed the character required to sustain them. Winning in public without working in private creates fragile success. It looks impressive but collapses under pressure. Private work builds depth. Depth creates stability. When your foundation is solid, public success doesn't overwhelm you or change you. You're prepared for it because you've already done the hard work internally and externally. Private work also sharpens patience. You learn to delay gratification without resentment. You get comfortable putting in effort without immediate reward. This patience is rare, and rarity increases value. Most people want quick recognition. Few are willing to wait. Those who wait often end up with results that are not only bigger but also longer lasting. Public wins carry more weight when they arrive quietly. When people don't see the struggle, they see the result as extraordinary. What they call overnight success is usually years of unseen preparation. This misunderstanding doesn't matter because the person who did the private work doesn't need validation. They already know what it cost. Working in private also builds confidence that isn't dependent on applause. You trust yourself because you've seen yourself show up consistently. This confidence is calm, not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. When you finally step into the public eye through results, that confidence is felt immediately. There's also strategic wisdom in privacy. Not everyone needs access to your process. Opinions can confuse direction, and premature exposure can invite doubt. Keeping your work private allows clarity to develop. You move based on conviction, not consensus. When the outcome is ready, it speaks clearly without explanation. Winning in public is inevitable when private work is consistent. The world rewards evidence, not effort. It doesn't see the late nights, the early mornings, or the repeated failures. It sees the finished product. That's why public wins feel sudden to others but natural to you. You're not surprised by your success because you've been preparing for it quietly. A short example makes this clear. Imagine two people aiming to master a valuable skill. The first constantly posts updates, talks about future success, and seeks encouragement. When progress slows, motivation drops. The second tells almost no one. They practice daily, struggle privately, and refine their ability without attention. Months later, when an opportunity appears, the first is still preparing while the second is ready. The public sees the result and calls it luck. But the private work tells the real story. In the end, private work is where you become capable, and public wins are where capability is revealed. Don't rush visibility, respect the process. Build quietly, improve consistently. And when you finally win in public, it won't feel like a surprise. It will feel like confirmation of the work you were always willing to do in silence. Silence builds inner confidence because it removes your dependence on external feedback and forces you to develop trust in yourself. When you stop explaining, announcing, or defending your choices, you no longer look outward for reassurance. You begin to operate from an internal reference point instead of an external one. That shift is where real confidence is born. Inner confidence is not loud, performative, or attention-seeking. It is calm, steady, and grounded. Silence creates the conditions for that kind of confidence to grow. Most insecurity comes from needing confirmation. When people talk excessively about their plans, struggles, or opinions, they are often unconsciously asking, am I okay? Am I doing the right thing? Do you agree with me? Silence removes that crutch. When there is no immediate feedback, you must rely on your own judgment. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, but over time it strengthens self-belief. You learn to make decisions without needing permission, and that independence becomes confidence. Silence also builds emotional control. When you don't react to every comment, challenge, or misunderstanding, you prove to yourself that your emotions don't control you. Each moment of restraint reinforces self-respect. You begin to realize that you don't have to respond to everything to be powerful. This awareness is deeply empowering. Confidence grows when you know you can stay composed under pressure. Another way silence builds inner confidence is by reducing comparison. Talking often leads to measuring reactions: who agrees, who disagrees, who supports you, who doesn't. Silence removes that scoreboard. When you're not tracking reactions, you focus on progress. Confidence then comes from competence, not popularity. You start trusting the work you're doing rather than the opinions surrounding it. Silence also sharpens self-awareness. When you are not constantly speaking, you listen more to your thoughts, instincts, and patterns. You notice what drains you and what strengthens you. This self-knowledge creates alignment. Aligned actions build confidence because you are living in accordance with your values rather than performing for approval. The more aligned you are, the less validation you need. There is also strength in letting actions speak. When you don't announce who you are or what you're becoming, you remove the pressure to live up to an image. You are free to grow at your own pace. This freedom reduces anxiety and builds confidence organically. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are simply becoming. Silence trains patience, and patience is a confidence multiplier. Impatient people often talk too much because they want immediate recognition. Patient people trust the process. That trust is confidence in motion. When you can wait without anxiety, work without applause, and improve without recognition, you develop a deep sense of self-assurance that cannot be shaken by delays or doubt. Inner confidence also grows when you stop over-explaining. Over-explaining is often a sign of insecurity, the fear of being misunderstood or judged. Silence communicates certainty without words. When you don't rush to clarify or justify yourself, you signal to your own mind that your choices don't require approval. Over time, your posture, tone, and presence change. People feel your confidence even if you say very little. Silence doesn't mean weakness or avoidance. It means selectivity. You choose when to speak and when to stay quiet. That choice itself is empowering. You are no longer reactive, you are intentional. Intentional living builds confidence because you feel in control of your actions and responses. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine someone starting a difficult personal transformation, new habits, stricter discipline, and long-term goals. In the past, they explained every change to friends and defended their choices when questioned. This time, they stay mostly silent, they wake up early, work consistently, and avoid unnecessary debates. At first, it feels uncomfortable not explaining themselves. But as weeks pass, they notice something change internally. They feel calmer, more certain, less affected by opinions. When results begin to show, they don't feel the need to say, "I told you so." Their confidence is no longer dependent on being understood. It's anchored in who they've become. In the end, silence builds inner confidence because it shifts power inward. You stop borrowing belief from others and start generating it yourself. You trust your process, your discipline, and your direction. And that kind of confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It's felt in your presence, your consistency, and your peace. Become so focused that distractions get bored, because focus, when sustained, changes the entire relationship between you and the world around you. Most distractions survive on reaction. They feed on your attention, your curiosity, your emotional responses, and your need to engage. When you remove those reactions and replace them with deep, consistent focus, distractions lose their power. They don't get defeated by force. They fade away from neglect. Distractions are not strong by themselves. They become strong only when you respond to them. Notifications matter because you check them. Opinions matter because you defend yourself. Temptations matter because you negotiate with them. The moment you stop responding, distractions begin to starve. Focus works like a filter. It doesn't fight everything. It simply ignores what doesn't align with your priority. Over time, the things that once pulled you lose interest because there is nothing left to pull. Deep focus creates momentum, and momentum is unattractive to distractions. When you are fully immersed in a task, your mind enters a state where interruptions feel intrusive instead of tempting. This is why highly focused people often say they didn't even notice distractions around them. Their attention was anchored. Distractions thrive in empty space, not in occupied minds. Another reason intense focus repels distractions is identity. When you repeatedly choose focus, you stop seeing it as an effort and start seeing it as who you are. You don't constantly ask, "Should I get distracted?" In the same way you don't ask, "Should I forget who I am?" Focus becomes default. Distractions sense this consistency. They test you less because they fail more often. Distractions also get bored because they seek novelty, not resistance. Fighting distractions keeps them alive. Arguing with temptation gives it energy. Focus deprives distractions of novelty because your behavior becomes predictable. You work at the same time. You train at the same time. You study at the same time. There is nothing exciting to interrupt. Consistency is boring to chaos. Focus also narrows your emotional range in a powerful way. Distractions often arrive dressed as emotions: curiosity, fear of missing out, irritation, excitement. When your focus is strong, those emotions pass without action. You feel them, but you don't follow them. Over time, your nervous system learns that not every impulse leads to movement. This emotional maturity makes distractions ineffective. Another important aspect is that focus raises the cost of distraction. When you are deeply focused, breaking that focus feels expensive. You become aware of how long it takes to regain concentration. That awareness creates natural discipline. You don't need rules or willpower. You simply don't want to pay the price of interruption. Distractions sense this resistance and stop knocking as often. Focused people also design their environments intentionally. They remove easy access to distractions not out of fear, but out of respect for their attention. Phones are put away. Boundaries are set. Time is protected. When distractions repeatedly fail to gain access, they disappear. Just like people stop visiting places where they are ignored, distractions stop showing up where they aren't welcomed. There is also confidence in extreme focus. When you are clear about what matters, you don't feel guilty for ignoring what doesn't. Guilt is one of the biggest gateways for distraction. Focus closes that gate. You no longer feel the need to explain why you didn't respond or why you chose differently. That certainly makes distractions ineffective. Focus compounds. Each day of focused effort makes the next day easier. Distractions work in the opposite direction. They weaken with time when ignored. Eventually, what once felt like temptation feels irrelevant. Not because you became stronger overnight, but because your attention became more valuable to you than the distraction ever was. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine someone learning a demanding skill. At first, notifications, messages, and random thoughts constantly interrupt them. Instead of fighting these distractions, they commit to focused practice at the same time every day. They don't respond immediately. They don't explain. They don't negotiate. After a few weeks, something changes. Messages come in, but the urge to check them is weaker. Interruptions feel pointless. The distractions didn't disappear because they were conquered. They disappeared because they were ignored long enough to lose interest. In the end, becoming so focused that distractions get bored is not about extreme discipline or harsh rules. It's about valuing your attention so deeply that everything else becomes optional. When focus is consistent, distractions don't need to be managed, they remove themselves. And in that quiet space, progress accelerates. Clarity sharpens, and your potential finally has room to expand. In 2026, don't try to prove anything, build something. Let silence be your strategy and focus be your weapon. You don't owe the world an explanation. You owe yourself results. Stay quiet, stay consistent, stay committed. And when the year ends, let your transformation be so loud that words are no longer necessary.